Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Mad Meta Magic, where we try to make the magic meta mad. Now, I have a Boros Winota Joiner of Forces deck that has 5-0'd, and it's kind of existed in the modern metagame a little bit, and like the half to quarter percentage tier of the meta, but it looks interesting, and I haven't seen it played by anybody. So, what does it do? Basically, it is a red-white Boros kind of death and taxes sort of list, where the idea is to synergize with Winota to have an end game. So what does Winota say? Whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, you look at the top 6 cards of your library, and you may put a human creature card from among them onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. It gains indestructible until end of turn, and then the rest of the cards go to the bottom of your library. So we play a lot of humans and then a lot of non-humans, and our human creatures, besides Winota, also, for the most part, generate tokens, like Seasoned Pyromancer helps draw us cards, makes tokens that aren't humans, which in turn are more attacking creatures for Winota, and then we have Geist Honored Monk, which I'm pretty sure was an Innistrad intro pack rare. I haven't seen this card in forever, but my buddy used to play it in a Boros Humans deck way back in the day, like 8 years ago now. And so seeing this, I was like, I gotta play this deck. I want to play with Geist Honored Monk. We also have Dranith Magistrate to stop people from casting spells from their library or their graveyard or anywhere that isn't their hand. And then Thalia and some Leonin Arbiters. Out of the sideboard, we do have Magus of the Moon, which we can tutor up and make indestructible for a turn with Winota, which seems kind of fun. Deafening Silence to help hate on the Cascade decks. Auriok Champion Core Firewalker, another Thalia. So yeah, let's see what happens. I'm kind of interested to see if this deck is, good, or if people just get lucky with it, or, what the deal is. Because it looks like a lot of fun. So, I will see you all in round 1. Alrighty, round 1, here we go. Well, if my opponent shows up. Nope, someone fell asleep at the keyboard. I'll see you guys when the queue actually fires. Alright, for real this time. Maybe not. Maybe I'm in matchmaking hell. Oh my god. Okay. They waited till the 0 to click. I'd like to play first. We have 2 Ghost Quarters and a Leonin Arbiter, so, yeah, we'll keep. Alright. We are going to start with a Sacred Foundry tapped. Pass the turn. Opponent starts Cavern Naming Spirit into an Aether Vial. Well, they do play fetch lands, so maybe we can get them with this Arbiter. Okay, we draw Sunbaked Canyon. Play Needle Verge Pathway into Leonin Arbiter. Pass the turn. Now next turn we have to decide between Ghost Quarter and Seasoned Pyromancer. Opponent untaps, upticks Aether Vial, plays a Misty, and runs right into Leonin Arbiter. Oh, that's so rude. Well, I know what we're doing now. Play Ghost Quarter. Ghost Quarter Cavern. Oh, opponent. Oh, opponent, you gotta read. You can't read cards less than I read cards. That's just asking for trouble. Hit them for 2. Pass the turn. Opponent upticks Aether Vial. I think right now we're just gonna rush up to a Winota. It is tempting to Ghost Quarter, but at the same time, I think Pyromancer is just going to be better. So what spirits could they vial in onto? Like Supreme Phantom, the 2/1 flyer that makes everything destructible, Rattle Chains. There's a few. I wish I had one more non-creature card, non-Winota card to discard here. So I think I'm just going to play Seasoned Pyromancer and pass. I'm going to discard Sunbaked Canyon and Sacred Foundry. Okay, opponent's going to vial in a 2-drop, Rattle Chains, discard lands. Okay, we get an Aether Vial and a Phyrexian Revoker. If my opponent misses a land drop, we're going to Phyrexian Revoker, naming Aether Vial. Okay, opponent plays a Mausoleum Wanderer. Does not attack. We untap. We draw Geist Honored. Play Phyrexian Revoker. This is probably going to bait a Spell Queller. If they're missing land drops, they're going to have one. Yep. Okay. So now we could either Ghost Quarter their only land or play Aether Vial. Might as well play Aether Vial. Kind of sucks that we had to discard 2 lands there, but the odds of drawing a land is pretty decently high. They're going to keep Vial on 3. Okay, they attack us for 3. We untap, Aether Vial ticking up to 1. We draw another Winota. That's not good. Go to combat. Attack here and here. No blocks for the opponent. Do we quarter them? The potential exists for them to top deck a land and then play 2, so I'm actually going to Ghost Quarter here. Because that means they can't play any 1-drops, and they won't be able to play any 2-drops for a long time. And if they have if they have like a bunch of spell quellers in hand or something, and they need to stay reactive, they can't be tapping Aether Vial willy-nilly, basically. And they attack us for 5. Take 5, go to 12. We untap. Aether Vial ticking up. I'd like to draw a Path here. Skyclave Apparition also does work. Go to combat. Attack for 3. It's just going to take a turn. I would be tempted to Skyclave Apparition Spell Queller and then just name Aether Vial. Yeah, we might be in trouble. Gonna plays a Windswept Teeth. So they're attacking us for 10 and we're going to 2. They have a 3-mana Lord, we're just dead. I don't think we have anything that can get us out of this, unfortunately. Yeah. Alright. So I was playing the deck probably a bit wrong. I think discarding those lands was a bit of a mistake, but I wasn't really sure that that's what it was. Didn't realize we didn't have Path in the main deck either. I'm going to bring in Path and Wear and Tear. The question is, what am I taking out? Probably Dranith Magistrate. My opponent is not casting spells from non-creature areas of the game. That does greatly reduce the number of humans I'm playing. Magus of the Moon potentially does work here as well. My opponent's not really going to be targeting my creatures all that much. So I'm going to cut 2 Givers and bring in a Magus. Alright, we're going to try it like this. Maybe I should cut a land here, because we seem kind of land heavy, but we're also, we have some pretty heavy top end cards, so. Alright, I would like to play first. Well, we have a Path, and we have Thalia. I mean, presumably this deck has better hands, because this is kind of like a mulligan to 6 already, with a Geist Honored Monk in hand. But we do have Seasoned Pyromancer, so we could potentially dump it. I think I'm going to keep it off of the strength of Thalia and Path. Thalia is not going to be super useful, but if my opponent doesn't start Aether Vial, they'll never play Aether Vial. So, start Sacred Foundry tapped, pass the turn. Opponent plays Flooded Strand, cracks Flooded Strand, gets a Hallowed Fountain untapped into an Aether Vial. Okay. Well, we would like to draw a land now. Play Thalia. Pass the turn. If we can draw a land and Skyclave that Aether Vial, we're in a good place. Okay, Sunbaked Canyon. Play Skyclave Apparition. Okay, opponent's going to Vial in a Mausoleum Wanderer. Skyclave Apparition going to take out Aether Vial. I am going to attack with Thalia here. I mean, maybe not. Let me think about this for a second. If I attack with Thalia, they can double block to kill it, but they still lose the Spirit of my choice. They don't play all that many non-creature spells unless they play Collected Company, but I still think it's worth attacking here. Opponent does not block, so it was worth attacking. Pass the turn. Next turn, we'll probably play Seasoned Pyromancer and discard Pyro and Geist Honored Monk. Opponent plays Misty Rainforest, cracks it. Gets a forest, so they are playing Company, and it would appear that they are also playing Spell Queller, so I'd like to draw a land, just to guarantee I can kill the Queller with Path. We untap and draw Needle Verge Pathway. So, play Needle Verge Pathway, go to combat, attack for 4. Okay, no blocks for the opponent. They take 4. Play Seasoned Pyromancer. Here comes the Queller. Oh, it's Drog Skull Captain. Well, I can make them sack the Mausoleum Wanderer, almost 100%. Oh, I can't, because I can't pay for Path. Never mind. I just told my opponent I have Path by trying to tap that land. Thalia! How dare you betray me? And by betray, I mean do exactly what I told you to do. Well, if we can resolve a Winota Joiner of Forces next turn, we're in a good spot. Opponent plays Cavern on Spirit. Hits us for a lot. No blocks. Okay, math. My opponent has 7 power on board. If I play Winota and my opponent has a Queller or company into a Queller, and Winota dies, or Winota doesn't hit the board, we hit our opponent for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They go to 2. If I path first and I leave back a 1/1, I can play Copter and have a blocker. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is attack. Opponent is going to path Skyclave Apparition. Okay, in this case I'm going to path Drogskull Captain. I'm glad I didn't try and cast Winota this turn, because path was even more backbreaking than... what's it called? Queller would have been. My gosh. Get your head in the game, Kano. Alright. Hit our opponent down to 5. Play a Needle Verge Pathway. Play a Smuggler's Copter. Pass the turn. Opponent goes to combat. No attacks. They play a fetch land. We untap. We draw. Needle Verge Pathway. Attempt to play Winota. Collected Company. They get Spell Queller and Skyclave Apparition. That's pretty good. So they take Smuggler's Copter from us, which we can't do anything about or with. They exile Winota temporarily. They buff up Wanderer, so now attacking is not an option. Let's sack Sunbaked Canyon to draw. It's another Sunbaked Canyon. Play Pillar Verge Pathway. Pass the turn. If they play a single spirit, they have enough power in the air to kill us. We were pretty sure they had company, though, so... Okay, they attack in the air for 5. No blocks. They can flash a spirit if they've got one, and they do. Okay. Well, that was an unfortunate match 1. But I'll see you guys in round 2. Alright. Round 2, here we go. I would like to play first. Well, we got a pretty good Aether Vial curve, so I'm going to keep it. We are against a Lurrus deck, which means either Death Shadow or Hammer Time. Or something else. Mill. Okay, yes. Mill is technically a third option in this scenario. So we will tick up Aether Vial to 1. Pass the turn. Second Crab. Yeah, the dreaded double Crab is probably one of the best openers in Mill ever. They play a Field of Ruin. They get to mill us for 6. They mill some Draneth Magistrates, Winota, Skyclave, and a Geist Honored Monk. So activate Aether Vial, put in Giver, untap, Aether Vial, uptick. We get a Seasoned Pyromancer. I could Phyrexian Revoker Field. I could play I could just Violin Thalia, which is probably what I'm going to do. Okay, pass the turn. The reason I'm doing this instead of the Phyrexian Revoker play is because if my opponent does actually attempt to field us, I could Ghost Quarter them in response, and they would lose their field, and we wouldn't be forced to search because we would fizzle the ability. So opponent mills 2 lands and a Leonin Arbiter, and then 3 lands. Yeah, that's good. I mean, I would like to draw a land. Opponent does attempt to field us, so we Ghost Quarter their Obero. They do get to mill us again, but then Field of Ruin, the ability is fizzled. They get a basic Swamp. They mill us for 6 more. And this is effectively the same play, except they're down a land, and they can't Archive Trap us. Okay, we untap, uptick Aether Vial to 3. Draw Sunbaked Canyon. Go to combat. Attack for 2. Okay, opponent takes 2, goes to 18. Vial in a Seasoned Pyromancer. Discard Copter and Pyromancer. Make 2 1/1s. Play a Sunbaked Canyon and pass the turn. Opponent untaps. 2 mana, so this could be a Glimpse. It could also be a Mesmeric Orb. It is a Bloodchief's Thirst, killing Giver. Okay. I mean, these fetch lands are good. We are going to throw in a Skyclave Apparition to take out a crab, but it's probably too late for that to do anything meaningful anyway. We are going to take up Aether Vial to 4. So put in Skyclave Apparition, take out a crab. Opponent cracks Polluted Delta in response to mill us for 12, or 6. Can't math. Okay, we go down to 18 cards in deck. Take up Aether Vial to 4. We draw another Aether Vial, which we cannot cast. Go to combat. Attack with everybody. It's possible I should have kept it on 3 for the Pyromancer, but I don't really want to be drawing extra cards right now. In theory, Geist Honored Monk is a very fast clock. If my opponent just kind of like fizzles out and doesn't have a lot more castable mill, like if their hand is like 4 Archive Traps or something silly like that. They Fatal Push Thalia to unlock their cards. I mean, we lose out on Winota if I tick up to 5, but that's fine. We draw a Sacred Foundry. So, go to combat. Attack with the team. Opponent blocks a 1/1, takes 5, goes to 7. Shock Sacred Foundry. Play Phyrexian Revoker, naming Field of Ruin. Oh, I have to name a non-land card. What activated abilities does Mill have that isn't Field of Ruin? It's embarrassing. Kano can't read cards. One moment. I am terribly sorry. This is so embarrassing. Modern Mill. Activated abilities that aren't on a land. Basically nothing. I'm going to name Abandon Reason. And then I'm going to Violin Geist Honored Monk now, just so I can have 6. Pass the turn. Watch my opponent go Land Damnation. Or have the Crypt Incursion. That'd be fun. Okay, opponent, when I joke about something, you don't actually have to do it. Okay, Aether Vial staying on 5. We draw Sunbaked Canyon. So play Sunbaked Canyon. Play Seasoned Pyro. Dump our Aether Vial. We get Redain, God of the Worthy. Go to combat. Attack with everybody who can attack. I mean, at least we have a huge Geist Honored Monk, right? Let's see. Non-creature spells. Opponents cast with CMC 4 or greater cost 2 more to cast whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls. Counter that spell or ability unless they pay 1. I think the shield is more important than... Oh, we're just dead to Mesmeric Orb. Because we're milling so much off of that attack. Yep. Okay. Well, opponent knows what we're playing. We know what our opponent's playing. What do we do about this? I want Wear and Tear in the deck. Magus of the Moon potentially helps. Thalia is very good. Deafening Silence doesn't really help that much. Phyrexian Revoker hits none of their cards. So I guess, like, we can cut Phyrexian Revoker. They don't cast any spells out of their deck, so Drannith Magistrate's not that great. They don't flashback spells really either. Need to cut one more card. They do actually play a decent number of removal spells, so Giver stays. I'll cut a Geist Honored Monk. We'll try it like this. I mean, I could play Auriok Champion because it does have Pro Black and they can't Fatal Push it, but us gaining life doesn't matter, and playing a 2-mana 1/1 also probably doesn't matter. Well, we do have a Leonin Arbiter, as well as a Skyclave Apparition. I'm going to keep. Play Needle Verge Pathway into an Aether Vial. Pass the turn. Let's hope our opponent's second land is a fetch land, and they don't have a Fatal Push. Okay. Opponent plays a Prismatic Vista, immediately cracks it for blue. Into a Hedron Crab. We untap, Aether Vial ticking up to 1. Draw Plains. Play a Plains, play Leonin Arbiter. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Swamp, mills us for 3. Ghost Quarter, Smuggler's Copter. I would have loved to draw those Ghost Quarters. Let me tell you, Mesmeric Orb. Alright. We mill 2. Aether Vial ticks up to 2. So we mill Smuggler's Copter Magus. We will use Aether Vial's ability. We draw Seasoned Pyromancer. Play Sunbaked Canyon. Apparition, Killing Orb. Go to combat, attack for 2. Okay. Opponent's turn 3. They Fatal Push the Leonin Arbiter. That makes sense. They probably have a fetch land. Yep. So we mill Rugged Prairie, Aether Vial, and Plains. Opponent cracks Polluted Delta. They mill us for 3 more. Probably like a Glimpse the Unthinkable. Yep. Mill 10. Alright. There's a lot of our good cards in the grave now. So we untap. Aether Vial ticks up to 3. We draw another Needle Verge pathway. So, okay, let me think about this. What we're going to do is we're going to vial in a Seasoned Pyromancer. And we are going to discard Sacred Foundry and Needle Verge pathway. We get Wear and Tear. Play Needle Verge pathway. Play Seasoned Pyromancer. Discard Wear and Tear. 2 more lands. Okay, go to combat. Attack for 2. I think Mill is just a bad matchup for this deck, because we don't really interact with their game plan at all. It's not like we have like a True Believer or Aegis of the Gods or anything in our sideboard. For those of you that don't know, True Believer is a 2-white human, might be a cleric. That's a 2/2, and it gives you Shroud. Okay, well, probably getting Archive trapped here. Okay, we untap. Aether Vial, I'm going to tick up to 4. We draw a Leonin Arbiter. Play Sunbaked Canyon. Cycle Canyon. Go to combat. Attack for 7. Okay, they block the 1/1 and take 6. They go to 6. Then we play Leonin Arbiter. Pass the turn. The alternative was like exile Seasoned Pyromancer from the grave, but presumably they have a Crypt Incursion. Feed the Swarm, Killing Arbiter. Okay. They really need us to search their deck? Or search our deck? Or they just wanted another creature in the grave to gain 1 billion life? Okay. Well, I suppose if we top deck Winota and then play like every human out of our deck, Aether Vial gonna stick on 4. We draw Winota, play Rugged Prairie, Vial in Winota. At least we get to see what the triggers look like when we lose. Go to combat, swing with the team. So we get a Thalia, and we get a Magus of the Moon. I don't really think this does anything to help us, though. Unless my opponent's just, like, bricking and only drawing lands. We really do not stand a chance. And the fact of the matter is, they can put a Luris into their hand, and then potentially even cast it. Okay, we mill 3. I don't want to concede. I want to turn off auto yields. Oh my god, Moto, quit lagging. Turn off auto yields. Make some 1/1s. I guess we'll find every last human in our deck. So this is what our deck wants to do. Okay, we untap. Aether Vial, gonna stay on 4. We draw Giver of Runes. So, I mean, I'll play it, because why not? Go to combat. Attack with the team. I'm not gonna put Winota onto the battlefield. This is the last human in our deck. So my opponent has to draw... They have no permanents they can play with Luris. They have to draw, like, just lands for, like, 7 turns or something silly in order for us to beat them. It's not really possible for us to win, but this is fun to see the triggers happen. Oh, they top deck the crab, and they have a land. We can't actually do enough damage in the time allotted. It's fine. Alright, I'll see you guys in round 3. Alrighty, round 3. Here we go. I would like to play first. Well, it's another Leonin Arbiter Ghost Quarter hand, so I imagine this is going to be good. We'll keep. We are against a Yorion deck. Alright. Hopefully they need to search their deck a lot, and whatever inconsistency playing 80 cards has over 60 cards helps stack up against their favor. So we're going to play Plains, reveal the least amount of information we can, and pass. Opponent starts fetch land, cracks fetch land, finds a breeding pool, into a birds. We untap, Play Needle Verge Pathway into Leon and Arbiter. Pass the turn. I could have played a Ghost Quarter and gone for double Ghost Quarter next turn. But I wouldn't be able to play Seasoned Pyromancer as a backup plan, which looks like it's going to be a good thing that I played this way. Alright. We untap and draw Skyclave Apparition, which we could use to take out a Mana Dork if we wanted to. Do we want to do that? That actually kind of seems like what I want to be doing, so we are going to take out a Mana Dork. Presumably this is like the 4 or 5 color Yorion deck that's actually just Bant like Splash Red for Kiki combo or something. I could totally see that being a thing. Okay, opponent gets a Raugrin Triome, pass the turn. So Magus of the Moons are going to be coming in post game 1. We draw Phyrexian Revoker, go to combat, attack for 2. I don't know if I actually want to play Phyrexian Revoker. I could name like Noble Hierarch or something. I think I would rather pitch it and just get a 1/1. So dump Phyrexian Revoker and Needle Verge Pathway. Okay, we get a Drannith Magistrate. Play Ghost Quarter, pass the turn. So Drannith Magistrate's kind of nice, because they can't cast stuff out of their deck. Actually, I don't know if they do that at all. They definitely don't cast stuff from their grave. And this doesn't... This originally hated on companion cards, and I think with the new companion ruling, cannot. Okay, well, if we play Drannith Magistrate, they can't escape Uro, at least. So they gain 3 life, they can put a land into play. If they've got one, they don't. Man, what I wouldn't give the top deck another Leon and Arbiter here. Alright, we get a Sacred Foundry. So, play Drannith Magistrate, play Ghost Quarter, play Copter, go to combat, hit our opponent for 5. Opponent untaps. Man, if they have a Pyroclasm, I'm going to be sad. Another Uro? Reflector Mage, okay. They bounce Drannith Magistrate. We untap, draw Sunbaked Canyon. Play Sunbaked Canyon. Let's go ahead and cycle. We get a Geist Honored Monk that we cannot cast right now anyway. Let's go ahead and crew the Copter. Attack for 3. We loot. We start by playing Sunbaked Canyon. I'm actually going to get rid of Sacred Foundry here. So we hit them for 3, and then we pass. Opponent untaps. Deputy of Detention. Okay, they're probably going to take Smuggler's Copter. That makes sense. Then they pass. We untap. We draw another Skyclave Apparition. So play Sunbaked Canyon. Play Skyclave Apparition. Take out Deputy. Get back Copter. Replay Magistrate. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Misty. Finally gets up to 4 mana. They crack Misty. Really hope they don't have a Supreme Verdict. That would be terrible for us. Enigmatic Incarnation. Okay. So opponent will be able to search their library because we do not have a Leon and Arbiter, meaning they can sack Omen of the Forge and get a 3-drop. Or they could sack Enigmatic Incarnation and get a 5-drop. No, another enchantment. They can't sack Enigmatic Incarnation. So, they get a 3-drop creature here. Okay, Glasspool Mimic. Probably, well, I mean, they have to mimic Reflector Mage. They're going to bounce the token. Okay. So we untap, we draw another Geist Honored Monk. Okay, I'm actually not going to play the Monk first. Crew Copter, go to combat, attack them in the air for 3 and loot. Okay, dump Geist Honored Monk, hit them for 3 down to 5. I'm going to play Geist Honored Monk now. I don't want to play Winota and expose her to sorcery speed removal, of which my opponent has at least Deputy of Detention and Reflector Mage. Okay, opponent plays Omen of the Sea, so they get to preordain. They're doing this at sorcery speed so they can stack it at their end step to get another 3-drop. of some kind. Abundant Growth, giving themselves options. They get to Cantrip. Snow-covered island. And a Seal of Fire. Alright. Let's see what they sack and tutor up. Okay. They sack the Omen of the Sea. You get Skyclave Apparition hitting Smuggler's Copter. Yeah, you got it. Leon tap. We draw Leon and Arbiter. Play Winota. Go to combat. And I believe it is time to flunge. So we'll get another Geist Honored Monk. Tapped and attacking with extra tokens. The tokens are not tapped and attacking. And the game is over. Alright, so we want Paths, we want Wear and Tear, we want Magus. I don't think we want Revokers. Thalia is actually kind of good here. Maybe Deafening Silence has a place, but I kind of doubt it. Dranith Magistrate does stop them from casting Uro from the grave. They may have other cards that they can do something like that with, but I don't know for sure. So I'm going to cut Phyrexian Revoker. Redain actually has a pretty decent shot at having real text on him. Her? Them? I don't know. Opponent didn't seem to have that much removal, so I'm going to go down a couple Giver of Runes. I'm going to cut a land. I still have to cut 4 cards. Maybe I don't keep Dranith Magistrates in. We'll go down to 1. We'll cut 1 Geist Honored Monk and 1 Winota. That's almost certainly not correct, but I have no idea how to sideboard with this deck. Okay, I mean, this seems like a good curve, so... We have nothing to play on turn 3, which is unfortunate. But if we draw a Ghost Quarter or a 3-drop, which we've kind of maxed out on in the meantime. Okay, we did draw a 4th land, which is good. Start by playing Giver. Pass the turn. I'm going to reload on my coffee. Did my opponent keep a 1-lander? Okay, second main. They crack Prismatic Vista and find Forest, Snow-Covered Plains, Path to the World Tree. They get to search their library. They find a Snow-Covered Island. We draw Skyclave Apparition, so play Needleverge Pathway. Play Leon and Arbiter, pass the turn. They can't search their library without paying, but now they have the ability to search their library with paying the mana anyway, so... We have Giver of Runes to protect Leon and Arbiter, which is nice. Kind of surprised that this card is seeing play, but it makes sense in my opponent's deck. It's a Lay of the Land that sticks around, maybe has relevant text, and... Okay, they bounce Giver of Runes. We untap. We draw Thalia, so... Play Sunbaked Canyon, go to combat, attack and kill Teferi. And we could play Skyclave Apparition, but I actually think hitting Path to the World Tree is bad. So I'm going to play Thalia to try and limit my opponent's options, not have a Wrath or anything like that. We're going to play Giver. This also gives us 2 non-human creatures to attack with Winota if my opponent doesn't have a counterspell. 3 mana. This could be a Reflector Mage. Spreading Seas. They're going to turn our dual land into an island. That actually does not matter to us, which is nice. It looks like they were doing that just a cantrip. So play Sacred Foundry. Here comes Winota. Go to combat. Attack with everybody. Maximum greed. Geist Honored Monk is our hardest hitter. So that's what we're going for here. Okay, Seasoned Pyromancer is good. Yeah. Nice. So that's what the deck is supposed to do. At least somewhat. And it's nice because hitting Geist Honored Monk and having Geist Honored Monk be tapped and attacking, and then you hit like another Seasoned Pyromancer or something, you add like 8 bodies to the board, and then all of a sudden Geist Honored Monk is like a swinging for 14 damage and it's indestructible. That seems pretty good. It's kind of like an aggro combo deck, or a Death and Taxes deck with kind of an aggro combo finish, which is kind of interesting. But I'll see you guys in round 4, which is right as I was about to mute myself, so... Alright. I would like to play first. Okay, I mean, I like having access to Aether Vial, so we'll start Plains into Aether Vial, pass the turn. Next turn we'll play Draneth Magistrate, and the turn after we'll probably play Redain. Okay, opponent plays an island. Aether Vial, ticking up. We'll draw Geist Honored Monk, which is not particularly good. Play Draneth Magistrate, pass the turn. Spell Snare, alright. This is probably the like infinite counterspell control deck with like Archmage's Charm and Mystic Sanctuary and all of those. I imagine. Because I think that and Sultai Uro are the only decks that would play Spell Snare. We get Inquisition, so opponent takes Redain because that is our only card that is 3 mana cost or under. This could be Fairies, I guess. Fairies would play these cards. We untap, Aether Vial up to 2. Draw Sunbaked Canyon. So play Sunbaked Canyon. Sack it. Okay, we get Winota. Pass the turn. Okay, opponent casts an Opt. They untap. Play a Misty. And they pass. We untap. Aether Vial. Ticking up to 3. We get another Winota. So play Sacred Foundry tapped, pass the turn. This is not looking good for us. And if our opponent Archmage's Charms our Aether Vial, it's game over. Yeah, they do a Zagoth Triome. They untap. Mystic Sanctuary. Putting Opt on top of their deck. Interesting. Okay. So they just wanted an untapped 4th land, which tells me they probably have Factor Fiction and or Cryptic. So we untap, Aether Vial, ticking up to 4. We draw a second Aether Vial, so play it. Pass the turn. Here comes the Factor Fiction. Archmage's Charm to draw. They're not going to take our Aether Vial away from us. Okay. Inquisition, they're going to whiff. We play Creeping Tar Pit. It sucks we don't have any non-human creatures to attack with, but I am going to put a Winota into play here. Okay. So we put our 4/4 into play. Opponent is thinking hard. Okay. They pass. Aether Vials, we're going to tick both up. Okay, we draw a Needle Verge pathway, so go to combat. We're hiding the fact we can cast our other Winota. I'm expecting this one to get killed somehow. If they tap out for a kill spell, we'll cast the other Winota this turn, and then try and vial in a Geist Honored Monk. Okay, hit them for 4. They take it. They go to 12. Play Needle Verge pathway. Pass the turn. Okay, opponent untaps. Man, this is the longest, second longest I think my beard has ever been. Before I had it actually about almost twice that length. Like I've had it out to about here. But then it became too unruly to manage, and I was like, nah. Alright. This opponent does nothing. So on their end step, Violin Geist Honored Monk. Make some spirits. We untap. Put our Aether Vial triggers on the stack. The one on 5 gonna stay on 5. The other one we're ticking up. We draw a Smuggler's Copter, so go to combat. Probably getting Cryptic tapped, or not. Attack with everybody. 2 Winota triggers. Not going to put another Winota onto the battlefield. Seasoned Pyromancer. Alright. Okay, I'm going to discard Winota and Smuggler's Copter. Draw Seasoned Pyromancer. We're hitting our opponent for 4, 11. Yeah, we're hitting our opponent for lethal. So move to blocks, see if they have anything here. If they're somehow able to answer a bunch of the smaller creatures and Geist Honored Monk sticks around, we could vial in the other Geist Honored Monk and maybe actually have lethal. They're going to cycle Shark Typhoon X1, so they can block here and take 10 and go to 2. I think when my opponent drew cards with Archmage's Charm, they should have taken our Aether Vial instead of drawing the cards. I'm not an expert about my opponent's deck, but I really think that in a deck that's playing like a bunch of counter spells and stuff, you can't let your opponent have an Aether Vial if, you know, you're anticipating on still trying to counter stuff. Alright, play planes, pass the turn. Okay, I'm kind of imagining our opponent has to have like a Cryptic to stay alive. They play Polluted Delta. They go to combat. They pass. It's gotta be Cryptic Command. I'm still gonna put in the other monk anyway. Alright, we untap. So the 1 on 5 stays on 5. The 1 on 2 goes up to 3. You know, at least one time in my life, I'd like to see an opponent Cryptic tap, tapping all of your stuff, and then you like flash in a Village Bell Ringer, and then they all untap and kill your opponent. And like, you know, where is your Cryptic God now? But the only deck I can imagine that happening in is some deck that's playing like Kiki Jiki, you know? I mean, I could see a deck like this actually playing like that because Kiki's non-human and Village Bellringer is human, and this deck wants both and is in the right colors. So that might be a fun brew. We're vialing in Seasoned Pyromancer on our upkeep, so we draw 2 cards and then draw a card for turn. Okay, we get Thalia and a Rugged Prairie. So go to combat. Yeah, they've got to have Cryptic Tap here, or like Consume the Meek or something at instant speed. They're gonna... Alright, yeah, thanks. I'm okay with this. I'm okay with resetting that Aether Vial. So we'll go to our second main, play Aether Vial, play Thalia, then play Giver. And I think I'm just going to hold this Rugged Prairie in hand, make my opponent think I've got something else that might be scary. They're kind of running low on time, and while they might be able to like infinite Cryptic loop between Mystic Sanctuary and Polluted Delta, with Thalia on board, that would be like all they can do. So 5 mana, opponent does have Damnation. I guess I played into that. Alright, pass the turn. We untap. Aether Vial on 3, we're going to keep on 3. Aether Vial on 0, we're going to tick up to 1. We draw Sunbaked Canyon. So play Sunbaked Canyon, pass the turn. Now I could crack Sunbaked Canyon, and had I played Rugged Prairie out, I could crack Sunbaked Canyon and make the tokens for Seasoned Pyromancer, but I'm going to make the tokens off of Seasoned Pyromancer first. So on my opponent's end step, make some tokens. We untap. And now I'm going to tick up both Aether Vials, because if I get a Winota, I'll vial her in. We draw Ghost Quarter. I'm going to start by playing Ghost Quarter, and then sacking Sunbaked Canyon. Okay, we get a Plains. Go to combat. Attack for 2. If my opponent is going to animate Creeping Tar Pit to block, I will Ghost Quarter it. Okay, Snapcaster Mage. Snapcaster Mage targeting Cryptic Command. Okay, they're going to trade, and probably like Cryptic Bounce the other one, and draw. Yep. Okay. Opponent untaps. They play an island. So stop on my opponent's end step. Activate Seasoned Pyromancer. Make some elementals. We untap. Okay, keep the 1 on 4 on 4. And then Aether Vial on 2, we tick up to 3. Because I think we have more 3-drops left in the deck. Bricking and drawing lands. Play Plains. Go to combat. I mean, we have to try and keep pressuring them. Okay, opponent's going to animate Creeping Tar Pit. So we're going to Ghost Quarter Tar Pit. They Fatal Push a token. They lose Tar Pit. Okay, they get an island. The ability resolves. I suppose they'll have like a Shark Typhoon or something to cycle. Or not. Okay. They take 1 and go down to 2. Opponent untaps. They play Jace the Mind Sculptor and Brainstorm. They play Polluted Delta. Okay. We're going to keep our Aether Vials exactly where they are. We draw Seasoned Pyromancer. So, play Needle Verge Pathway. Go to combat. Attack our opponent for 1. They Fatal Push. I don't think there's any reason to do this in response, but maybe we can, like, pump fake that we have other instant speed tricks. Oh man, I should have done that beforehand. Oh well. Okay, opponent Fatal Pushes the token. Then we pass. Opponent cracks Polluted Delta and goes to 1. So they probably have to draw Uro. Mystic Sanctuary, they're going to put Archmage's Charm on top of their deck. They're going to opt in response. Okay. So they untap, they draw Archmage's Charm. They Brainstorm. They play a land. Maelstrom Pulse. Okay. Activate Aether Vial. Put Winota into play. We lose our vials. Strangely enough, we played around Maelstrom Pulse. We now have 2 lethal threats. My opponent is holding an Archmage's Charm, 3 unknown cards, and they've already brainstormed. They're now thinking hard. Snapcaster Mage for Maelstrom Pulse. They kill Winota. We untap. We draw Leonin Arbiter, which doesn't really matter at the moment. But play Leonin Arbiter. Play Aether Vial. Pass the turn. I possibly could have kept Aether Vial in hand and attacked with Pyromancer to make the ability for me to have a bunch of 1/1s instead of the creatures I do have. We're getting Fate Sealed by Jace, which tells me my opponent is probably desperate to win. Collective Brutality, they gain up a little bit of life. They almost attack us, but they decide against it. So Aether Vial. They're going to draw some cards in response. Sure. Tick up Aether Vial. We draw Needle Verge Pathway. Go to combat. Attack our opponent. Opponent blocks. Pass the turn. They untap. Play Polluted Delta. Brainstorm. Did they get game 1? It's been so long and I don't remember. They crack with Polluted Delta to shuffle away all the cards that they just put back. They opt. Well, they're going to have something, otherwise they're just dead to tokens. So on their end step, make tokens. We untap. Aether Vial ticking up to 2. Draw Sacred Foundry. Go to combat. Attack our opponent for 2. They have Abrupt Decay for a token. Yep. They take 1. So they're probably just going to unsummon with Jace. We'll play Sacred Foundry tapped. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They Fate Seal us again. So they have another answer to a different token. They play a tap land. Bloodchief's Thirst to kill our token. We untap. Aether Vial going up to 3. We draw a Ghost Quarter. Play Ghost Quarter. Pass the turn. So I think my opponent is on the Alt Jace plan to win. Snapcaster Mage for Archmage's Charm. They draw some cards. They Fate Seal us again. They play Field. Okay. We untap. Aether Vial. Yeah, I'll go up to 4. Get a Smuggler's Copter. Play Copter. Okay. Pass the turn. Opponent fields our Sacred Foundry. So I'm going to Ghost Quarter their Zagoth Triome. I'm not sure why they would randomly field there. Okay. They Fate Seal us again. They play a empty rainforest so that they can't activate. We untap, Aether Vial going up to 5. We get a Draneth Magistrate. Well, attempt to play the Magistrate. Crew the Copter. Go to combat. Opponent Snapcaster Mage, but they can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hand. Yeah, target that Abrupt Decay. I hope you have a backup plan, opponent. Attack my opponent. We get to loot. Discard Needle Verge pathway. Okay, opponent cycles a big Shark Typhoon. So they do have a blocker. This is fine. Okay, now we have to hope this Giver of Runes hits the board. Nice. Now we can name Pro Blue and attack, unless my opponent has to down-tick Jace, which puts them off of ulting for a turn. Fate Seal to 13, they got something else. They play an Overgrown Tomb tapped. They attack us for 8. I mean, if they do that, then we just attack with both creatures. We don't even have to give protection. So they don't. They attack with the Shark. Alright, go to 12. We untap, Aether Vial staying on 5. We draw another Draneth Magistrate. So give the Magistrate Pro Blue. And the game is over. Unbelievably, we win the match. That was game 1? Was that game 1, really? 14-minute game 1, and my opponent only had like 6 minutes left on the clock? Oh my gosh. No wonder I couldn't remember game 1. I was still in it. Alright, I'll see you guys in round 5. Alrighty, round 5, here we go. We lost the die roll. Opponent chooses for us to go first. So they are probably... hang on. Show game log. Yeah, they choose not to play first, so they're probably some sort of Gemstone Caverns abuse, or 8-rack. This is a mulligan because we have 2 5-drops in our hand. This is, in theory, better. I will keep. Put back Geist Honored Monk. Start Sacred Foundry into a Giver of Runes. Opponent did not start some Gemstone Caverns, so that's kind of interesting. Pass the turn. They did keep 7. Snow Swamp. Inquisition. So my opponent is playing 8-rack. And the reason that I come to that conclusion is it is typical that the player who has a million Thoughtseizes wants to go second because they need the draw so badly to make sure that they have a little bit of card advantage over their opponent that it's worth the tempo loss. I'm not sure if we have anything for 8-rack, but I guess we can try. Untap, we draw Phyrexian Revoke. So go to combat, attack our opponent for 2, hit them for 2. We're going to play Phyrexian Revoker, and we're going to name Liliana of the Veil. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps and draws. They Inquisition us again. That's fine. They take Seasoned Pyromancer, as it's a card we can use to reload our hand. They play Silent Clearing. This might actually be Pox. Okay. They cycle Silent Clearing. I would like to draw Ghost Quarter so bad. We get a Skyclave Apparition. So play Second Arbiter. Go to combat. Hit them for 4. We're going to try and stay disciplined on this Giver of Runes. And we would protect Revoker more than we would protect Arbiter. Okay, Inquisition, they take Skyclave. This probably is a rack. Cling to Dust on Pyromancer. Okay, they gain some life. They don't get to draw, though. And they don't miss a land. Okay, we untap. We draw another Giver. So play our other Giver. Go to combat, hit them for 6. Take them to 11. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Castle Lochthwain. And they play Ensnaring Bridge with 3 cards left in hand. Alright. We untap. We draw Smuggler's Copter, which, fortunately, I don't think is going to be very useful here. Go to combat. Us missing damage on Giver may have actually lost us the game. But in theory, we should draw another land and then like a Skyclave Apparition to get past the bridge. So hit our opponent for 6, they go to 5. Pass the turn. They draw up to 4. They play an Urborg. They play Shrieking Affliction. And they play Liliana. Okay, they have 1 card left in hand. We can't force them to draw in any way that I know of. We lose 3. We draw Plains. So play a Plains. Go to combat. Attack our opponent for 2, take them to 3. I should have attacked with these last turn. Because then my opponent would be at 1. Well, they have to dump 2 cards this turn, and if one of them is a Thoughtseize, potentially... Alright, we're getting Smallpoxed. So we lose a Leonin Arbiter and a Sacred Foundry. Okay, opponent goes down to 2 life. We need to draw a land, and then we need to draw a Skyclave, basically. Aether Vial sort of works, but it's going to take a while, and we'll probably be dead to Shrieking Affliction by the time we get there. So the problem is if our opponent has to draw a Thoughtseize. Actually, no, we're just dead to Shrieking Affliction. Maybe I should have held Aether Vial in hand. Yeah, I needed to hold Aether Vial in hand in case my opponent drew another Shrieking Affliction. They would have died if they drew a Thoughtseize. So, I will bring an Auriok Champion. I think Deafening Silence does actually have a place here. So does Wear and Tear, Thalia, and Phyrexian Revoker. And I think we are actually going to go down the primary game plan of cheating out huge creatures with Winota. We're just going to drop all of that. Because we need to be able to play our stuff relatively quickly. And these are never going to attack past a bridge, ever. So, well, I mean, the spirits from Geist Honored Monk might, but at that point of the game, we're probably just going to have issues. With the knowledge that we're going to get Inquisition, I think this hand is actually not great. This hand is a little bit better. I will keep. I'm going to put back Smuggler's Copter. And we will start Plains Aether Vial. Pass the turn. This way our opponent can't strip us of both playables on turn 2. We get Inquisitioned. They take Skyclave. We untap, Aether Vial on 1. We draw another Skyclave Apparition, that's great. Dranith Magistrate prevents my opponent from casting Raven's Crime. It's unlikely they search their deck, so... Oh, prevents them from retracing Raven's Crime, I should clarify. It also doesn't die to, like, a Collective Brutality, which I doubt my opponent would keep in the deck versus us, but it could matter. Okay, Smallpox. So we are going to lose Leon and Arbiter here. And our basic plains. Okay, we untap. Aether Vial going up to 2. We draw a Needle Verge Pathway. So, play out Needle Verge Pathway, pass the turn. Depending on what happens here, I may sack Sunbaked Canyon to draw. Okay, opponent plays a Mutavault. I'm going to go for it. Get a Seasoned Pyromancer, okay. Aether Vial up to 3. We draw another Aether Vial, so we play it. Pass the turn. I don't want to vial out Skyclave Apparition and hit nothing, but I will if I have to. Okay, we're getting Inquisitioned, so we're playing out Seasoned Pyro. Discard Apparition. We draw another Seasoned Pyro and a land. They take Pyro, then they pass. We untap. Okay, Vial stays on 3. This Vial goes up to 1. We draw another Aether Vial. We're a long way off of getting value out of the Seasoned Pyro in the grave, so I think I'm just going to start holding on to cards. Hit them for 3. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps and passes. They must be holding a mountain of 3-drops. Okay, opponent plays the rack, chooses us. We untap. We take 1 damage from the rack. Aether Vial on 3 stays on 3 because we took out everything above 3. Aether Vial on 2 or on 1 goes up to 2. We draw Needle Verge Pathway, go to combat. Attack our opponent for 3. Hit them down to 13, pass the turn. They untap. Thoughtseize, they take Aether Vial. They go down to 11. They pass, we untap. Aether Vial staying exactly where they are. We take 1 damage from the rack. Do not tick up Aether Vial. We draw plains, so go to combat. Attack our opponent for 3. They go to 8. Pass the turn. They untap. They play a second rack, choosing us. We take no damage from the racks because we are at 3 cards in hand. We draw Phyrexian Revoker, so go to combat. Attack for 3. Now we're going to hold Phyrexian Revoker in hand until my opponent casts a spell of any kind. And if it's Liliana, we're going to name Liliana because I think that's their only activated ability we can hit with Revoker. But it should still matter. If they cast a hand hate spell here, I was going to say they actually lose to Revoker. Play Revoker. We can't name Mutavault right now. Okay. I think opponent thought we could, so they scoop. Yeah, it's not worth playing Magus, just shut off Mutavault. So opponent kept a hand that ended up getting the mana screwed. Which is the only reason why we won. This hand is not good. Yeah, they choose to play second. We're going to mulligan. We need something that can pressure our opponent. This hand should do it. I will keep. I'm going to put back Skyclave Apparition. We're going to start Sacred Foundry Aether Vial. With my opponent's first hand hate spell, they did mulligan to 6. They are almost 100% going to take Thalia, because Thalia makes their deck very hard to play. Unless they start with like a rack, which they didn't. Opponent takes Thalia. We untap, Aether Vial ticking up. We draw Leon and Arbiter. Play Sacred Foundry. Play Draneth Magistrate. Pass the turn. They play a Swamp. They probably have a Smallpox. Yep, okay. So we lose Draneth Magistrate, and we have to choose between Seasoned Pyromancer and Leon and Arbiter, and honestly, I think risking it to try and draw either another 2-drop or waiting until we can get Seasoned Pyromancer out is probably better. Leon and Arbiter is great if we get like a Ghost Quarter, but there's no guarantee of that happening, and we're only playing 4 Ghost Quarters. We're not playing Field of Ruin or anything. So, play Sunbaked Canyon, pass the turn. Sunbaked Canyon at least lets us store a draw. Opponent plays a Shrieking Affliction. So, active player, non-active player. We can't use Seasoned Pyromancer to dodge the Shrieking Affliction ability here. We are still going to vial in Seasoned Pyromancer on our upkeep, because it does let us end up with 1 more card in hand this turn. Okay, we draw Phyrexian Revoker. Now we get a bunch of Ghost Quarters. So I'm going to hold 2 Ghost Quarters in hand and play Revoker naming Liliana. Of the Veil, of course. Pass the turn. Now, I kind of wish I had kept that Leon and Arbiter, but we wouldn't have drawn those cards without it. Opponent plays an Urborg. Raven's Crime. This is why I wish I had Draneth Magistrate. So we have to pitch Ghost Quarter. They probably can Raven's Crime us again. But if they do, they're not going to have lands to ever play an Ensnaring Bridge. They play the Rack. So we're taking 5 damage here, I think. No, we can sack Sunbaked Canyon on our upkeep. So we put our triggered abilities on the stack. Then our opponent puts their triggered abilities on the stack. Then we sack Sunbaked Canyon to draw, so we don't take damage from Shrieking Affliction, and we only take 1 from the Rack. Okay. Aether Vial going to stay on 3. We draw Skyclave Apparition, which is excellent. Go to combat. Attack our opponent for 4. Skyclave Apparition here, basically, we're going to try and keep in our hand unless our opponent plays an Ensnaring Bridge. If my opponent does target us with Hand Hate, we're going to take out the Rack. Okay, opponent Ravens Crimes us. We're going to discard Rugged Prairie. Another Shrieking Affliction. Okay, well, we're going to hold Skyclave Apparition in hand. Because if I vial it out, we're taking, like, tons of damage. Right now, we're only taking 1 from the Rack. And my opponent... It doesn't change the clock favorably in our favor. Favorably in our favor. Kano, what is wrong with you? Speak English, please. Aether Vial staying on 3. We draw Wear and Tear. Okay, this might change how we play. Go to combat. Attack for 4. Hit our opponent down to 11. So we can tear a Shrieking Affliction and then Skyclave Apparition another one. Then we only take 2 damage a turn off of the Rack. We're going to wait for a turn just to make sure there's no Ensnaring Bridge shenanigans here. Want to play a Castle Lochthwain because to them that is more important than... Okay, so here's the risk. We tear Shrieking Affliction, Skyclave Apparition hitting the other Shrieking Affliction, then we start taking 2 damage a turn off the Rack. The upside is we change the clock from 3 turns to 2 and give our opponent only 1 draw to find an Ensnaring Bridge. But if we do our play to shorten the clock, then... we have no out if our opponent does draw Ensnaring Bridge. Alternatively, I could Vial Skyclave Apparition, take out the Rack only, still have 2 cards in hand, so we don't take damage from the Shrieking Afflictions. Then they only have 1 draw, and if they do, we have Wear. I like that better. Vial in Skyclave Apparition, take out the Rack, we untap. Aether Vial gonna stay on 3. We draw Sunbaked Canyon. Play Sunbaked Canyon so we can store a draw if we need to. Go to combat, attack our opponent for 6. Okay, Moment of Truth. They basically half the top deck bridge, and if they do, we have Wear and Tear ready to go. Opponent does not draw bridge. They got a Mutavault instead, which does keep them alive. I'm going to sack Sunbaked Canyon to draw. Another Skyclave Apparition. This is good. Okay, we draw Giver of Runes. Play Giver. We are not going to attack with any of our creatures this turn. We stand to lose too much if we... Now our opponent is in the same position they were before. They basically have to draw Bridge. Opponent Fatal Pushes, Phyrexian Revoker. Okay, yeah, that's fine. So then on our opponent's end step, we vial in a Skyclave Apparition, exiling Shrieking Affliction, untap. Aether Vial stays on 3. They can block 1 creature, so we just attack with everything and deal 5 damage to them. Oh, wow. That was close. You know, after the start we had, I was really worried that this deck was kind of just like a flash in the pan. Somebody got lucky. But it seems like it does have some real power. Let's open up our treasure chest and take a look. 5 play points. We get a Duskmantle Seer and a Sphinx of Uthune. Okay. So let me take a look at our Winota, Boros Winota deck. Like I said, I'm not very good at playing decks like the one that we're playing right now. I tend not to be good at decks that you have to like, just like Death and Taxes style decks, or humans, or spirits, or elves. I'm a little better at elves, because elves is a little more combo-y. But like, I'm not very good at decks where you have to kind of play a different game plan depending on what your opener is every single game. I'm better at decks that have a singular game plan that you try to assemble, like combo decks, just because that's more that's closer to what I'm usually playing. But this one was pretty interesting. We had like it's really interesting because it's a Death and Taxes deck that has a consistent end game, and that end game is very powerful. You tend to like one-shot your opponent with like a 10/10 Geist Honored Monk or two, and Drannith Magistrate's kind of fun because you can stop your opponent from cascading. Unfortunately, we did not play up against any Tibalt Cascade decks. I say unfortunately like I wanted to, but I mean, I was kind of hoping we could play against one to punish it with this deck, but we did not. I don't really know what changes I would make. I think, honestly, having another Thalia in the main deck at least would be good, because Thalia is one of the strongest cards in this color pairing. It's one of the strongest cards in any sort of deck like ours. I think even cutting a land for it would be fine, because we were a little heavy on lands. I understand why we're playing 4 and 5 drops, but I mean, even then we were drawing too many lands most of our games. So I would probably cut like maybe a Needle Verge Pathway and a Rugged Prairie. Or not a Rugged Prairie, because Rugged Prairie is nice because we have Skyclave Apparition and Seasoned Pyromancer. I would cut like a Plains and a Needle Verge Pathway. I would probably run one of the red Canopy lands and then one of the white Canopy lands, just to help cycle through the deck a little bit faster. Then I would probably cut another pathway to add a Thalia to the main deck, just because that's my personal preference. I like that Smuggler's Copter is a non-human. I like that, you know, you can play your Giver of Runes, Leonin Arbiter, early open game, and then you can curve into a Winota, and then those creatures fetch you your better human creatures, like Seasoned Pyromancer and Geist Honored Monk, for like the big one shot at the end. The deck has a lot of synergies. I feel like you lose too much of the valuable disruption in the early game to play a deck like this, and so I would like to, if I was going to play this deck more often, find a way to incorporate some of that disruption back in the primary game plan. But I'm not an expert. I don't know what the best way to take this deck is. That's just my thoughts on it personally. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. It'd mean the world to me if you did. I stream Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on Twitch. Same username over there as you find me on here. I hope you all have a good day. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!